and I will let you start by telling us a little bit about yourself and Sandra, and then we'll go into the questions about the binder and yeah, take it away.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Mhm.
Well, first of all, thank you, Michelle and Catherine. This is wonderful. I'm really happy to just share this information. As you said, my name is Sandra Batra. I created this life transition binder, and I've been doing it. So I initially started 14 years ago. Um, and because of personal experiences, about 9 years ago, what I started to do is just give presentations about what this is, help people understand the benefit of it, really, and how they can utilize it and create it themselves. I used to go to all the senior centers locally to do that because I wanted people to learn from my experience.
Mm.
We can, through sharing, we can really help others to understand, as you said, other resources that are out there. And I really believe that, it's one thing to read about something, it's
Mhm.
another thing when you can really relate to experiences. And so, anyway, I was just gave presentations everywhere. And then one senior center actually said to me, well, like, can't you teach a class on this? And then I developed a class, and I have to say, like, I love what I do, because I have found that the people that I work with, are just so incredibly appreciative.
Mm.
Um, and um, and it feels good to know that you're helping to make a difference.
Our first question is, can you explain what the binder is, what the life transition binder is?
Yes, absolutely. It's really an organizational tool. It pulls together all your important life details into one resource. Um, you can then turn to it at any point in your time. It really is a physical binder because I think that whole tactile process is so important. Um, it sort of reminds you of what you have and where everything is. Um, the binders that I create are made up of about 60, it's actually 64, but right now, 64 worksheets. And each one, so there's 64 in total, and they're divided into 8 different categories, which are what I consider to be really important categories. So, like personal information, property, financial, investments, insurance, let's see, medical, bill payment, and then last there's one for others, sort of that catch-all. Um, I break down those worksheets according to where they fall into those categories, because again, it's about organizing the information, so that it is easy to follow and it simplifies it. Um, so basically, with these worksheets, it asks questions. And so the user actually just writes in their information. It becomes, I like to call it a cheat sheet. It's really like the cheat sheet to your life. I use templates, and the templates have tables in them because some people have actually come to me with their emergency kit and they've asked me to review it. And I start pulling out documents and I look and I don't know where to start. And I don't know where the end is. And I don't know what am I looking at? And so for me, having it organized in this way, with where information is literally in, like I said, like a table format, it's very clear where the start is and where the end is and where they need to put their information. Um, I personally like to think of these binders or resources as having 3 roles. Um, a lot of people say, "Oh, it's a death binder," and I actually don't think it is. And I tell people, I'm pretty adamant about it. I'm like, it's for you now, and as you age, this is your resource that you can put your hands on at any given point. For some of us, we might see a doctor once a year, or it may be a bill that we pay once a year,
Mhm.
but we cannot be expected to remember all those details.
Yeah.
And so this is the place that you can turn to. Like if it's a doctor, I go to medical and then I can see exactly who it is. So it's my resource. It just reminds me of what I have and where it is at any point in time. And I think that's especially important because we're living longer
Mhm.
and we want to remain independent. We don't, excuse me, we don't want to be a burden, but we also need to be organized.
Mhm.
And so this is, very personal, but I feel that it helps to keep me organized and
Mhm.
very clearly outline, like I said, what I have and where it is. Um, and that actually, I think, also helps to reduce anxiety.
Absolutely.
So, if I look at it from just say from my mum, for example, she has a binder, and so it's her resource, not just for today, but in 5 years or in 10 years. My mum's 82. So, I envision that, yes, you have to update it, but it's
Mhm.
going to be her resource, for as long as she's alive.
Right.
And it's really, I know for her, it really gives her a sense of peace of mind because she can utilize it at any point.
Mhm.
Um, so, like I said, that I think the first role is it is for you and for now, and
Mhm.
as you age. The second function of it is really for that sort of what if. What if I fall? I need a hip replacement, then I have rehab. If I need somebody who's going to step in and help me, just until I'm literally back on my feet again,
Mhm.
then who can do it and how? Well, they can do it because they can turn to this resource because it's got all the information in it. And so it allows other people to step in and help you when you need it most.
Mhm.
And then the last function, and it truly is the last one, is really for end of life. Because then it becomes the resource that your executors or trustees, whatever you have, but they can then utilize it to settle your estate. Um, Sometimes, when I'm talking to someone, people will say to me, "Well, I have all my estate documents," and I tell them I'm really happy they've done it because they do need to do that. But if we remember what our estate documents tell us is, it says, when I'm gone, pay my bills, but then take all my assets and divide them between, these people and these charities. Well, that's great. But what assets? Like if we're saying take all my assets and pay all my bills, well, what bills and what assets? So it really complements your estate documents. I actually had a couple of estate lawyers who said to me, "Oh, this is really great. I need you to create it for me." Because and they know, obviously they create estate plans for, that's their expertise, they do that all the time. So I think I truly believe that it really complements those documents. So I think it's a gift that you actually are giving to yourself, but you're giving it to your loved ones too. So I guess in a nutshell, that's what a life transition binder is.
Um,
Yeah.
So not only is it instructions for living and not just for after you die, but it's also a living document in the sense that it needs to be updated as life changes because
Yes,
all
absolutely.
the
It
time.
does.
And like you said, it's you're doing as much as you can for those what ifs. You can't plan for every what if. You can,
Right.
but if you don't plan for any what ifs, then you're even further behind.
Right.
So, and
Exactly.
a lot for a lot of people, I think myself included, just getting started is the hard part. So you make that structure, you make that binder, and you can always add to it,
Hmm.
and you have to add to it as your life changes. But I think it's just that first step of saying, I need this binder, I need to start it. You start somewhere. But for people who might struggle with organization, it could feel overwhelming. So having that structure and you just add to it. Because the question is, who do you believe benefits most from the life transition binder in terms of a target audience? And number one, I think you've already answered that in a way, not that you can't add more, but two, the idea is, any of us, could have a major life change at any time. So we need to be prepared. But I will ask you the question and let you share your perspective on, who do you think would benefit most from it?
Yeah, so I guess initially, I think that anyone who has dependents,
Mm,
um, should have a resource like this. Um, but when we are young, we tend to believe that we're pretty invincible, that, we've got plenty of time and we don't have to do something like this. It's something that we can postpone and we do put it off. And I can, speak to that certainly. Um, so, and it's not until some life event, some medical emergency happens that it sort of triggers, the need for it. So, myself, I have found that, I do tend to work with a lot of seniors, and I have found that they are so receptive to it because, they realize that, they don't have as long to live, or they've got medical issues or that they deal with, and for that reason they're very responsible and they want to not only sort of support themselves but help their loved ones so that they can support them, so they see a greater need for it. um, and so I do predominantly work with seniors. I do have some people, like, actually sometimes it will be the children of seniors who come to me, and then through the process or through learning about it, they say, "Oh, I really need one of these." And you know, I try not to tell them, "Well, yeah, actually, you do need one of these," um, and let them to realize it themselves. Because I think sometimes when you're told to do something, again, it's that I don't know, they back away. Well, I've got plenty of
yeah.
time. You know what? The priority is helping my parents
Mhm.
or my family that needs it. And when they come to that realization themselves, um, then I feel that they're more apt to actually follow through with it.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you have a caregiving situation where you are the primary caregiver, not just a parent, but a primary caregiver type of role, then it emphasizes the importance of having their documents, but also mine.
Right.
And yeah, so I love that.
So
That
one
makes
of
so
the things, one of the things that I also stress, like in when I'm teaching classes, I stress to them the importance of customizing it. So I
Mhm.
have 8 tabs because those are sort of generic. Everyone has that information, and I believe that has to be in there. But then if somebody says to me, well, you know, well, I provide extra tabs and I tell them, you know what? We need to customize it based upon you. So, for example, if you have younger children, then you may have tabs for each child. You really look at it and say, for some people that I work with, they've had, kids with disabilities. Okay, we have a tab for that. Or it could be, I mean, these extra sort of sections or tabs really get customized based upon your situation. And, when I go to class, I bring like a box of tabs and I just say to them, you know what? I can't create those because I don't know each of your situations, but I can make them available to you and give you suggestions. So, like for someone, it may be, they've purchased a cemetery plot. So they've got the certificate and they've got their invoice. So I tell them, okay, here you go, here's your tab. And you're going to write cemetery plot, and then you're going to stick your information behind it. If it's, let's say you have a service dog. If you have a service dog, okay, we have a tab for your service dog, and it's got all the details that's really important for that. So again, even when you create the binder, you do exactly what you said. You have to customize it. Um, and because everyone's situation is going to be different, and that information is really critical.
What inspired you to create it?
So I started 14 years ago. So my basically my parents lived in Florida and I live in Massachusetts. And my father's health was not good, and we knew it, but we could see a more rapid decline in his health. Now, just to shed a little light on it, I mean, I think most of you can pick up, obviously, that I am British. When we moved here, my dad had a pre-existing health condition, and it was high cholesterol. That's all it was. I mean, it is hereditary, but it was high cholesterol. And when we came to the States, there was no Affordable Care Act or Obama Act Care, however you want to call it. And so if you had a pre-existing health condition, you could not get health insurance. So my dad was 40. And so until he was eligible for Medicare at 65, he was not able to ever have health insurance. So now my dad worked the whole time, but he was denied because of a pre-existing health issue. So anything that he had done was always out of pocket. And you know what? Healthcare is not cheap here. So we knew he had a lot of things um, that had never been diagnosed. We knew certain things because, obviously when it was bad, my parents paid for it. Um, so basically, at the age of 68, my father's health was really declining. And so I went to Florida and I said to them, we need to do this because you are, like the holder of all the information. My dad took care of absolutely everything and really, took care of everyone. And so he and I, spent a lot of time just gathering all the information and then organizing it and documenting it all. And so that's really how the first life transition binder came about. I took a copy of it, and then they kept a copy. And what it allowed them to do is, so my mum, who had never done any of this or didn't even know what they had or where it was, could finally put her fingers on it because people had questions. Um, even though my dad had Medicare, they now at this point, he was seeing so many doctors, the cost was outrageous still when you're only paying 20%. And so basically, it was an incredible resource for my mum. She didn't always understand the information, but at least she could put her fingers on it. And then I had it back. So when I came back to Massachusetts, I had a copy. Now I had all the legal documents too that said I could step in legally to assist them. But there were days when my father would actually say to me, I feel great. I can take care of everything. And it was like fabulous. But there were equally days when he would say, I don't trust myself to make a decision. I don't know what's wrong, but this medication is making me feel this way. And I could say to them, don't worry. And so very seamlessly, we could, step in and out. And I could say, I will call the doctor. I'll tell you when to be there. I'm going to, discontinue that medication. And I'm going to actually make sure the funds are available. I'm going to pay your bills. Don't worry. So we actually went straight to step two. I talked about the different roles. It's that what if when you need somebody to help you. We went straight into that. Um, and so for 3 months, that's what we did. Sort of each of us stepping in and out based upon how he was feeling. And I say 3 months, it took them 3 months to actually diagnose him. He had terminal cancer. Um, Sorry, it still gets me. And then, so my father lived for another 6 months. And during that time, I had all the information, I could take care of everything. But what it really allowed me to do is every single month, I traveled to Florida. And my dad spent, I would say, the vast majority of that time in the hospital. But it allowed me to actually visit and be present. And that was the greatest gift I could ever have had, because we didn't have to scurry and look for information. We had everything at our fingertips. Everything was sort of in order. And so we could just focus on each other. I could help my mum, who was the caregiver, and I could just be there for my dad. And that was, like I said, the most amazing and precious gift I could have ever had. Um, when my dad passed away, so 6 months later, we didn't, we could focus on each other in the grieving process because, again, we didn't have to worry. And, we sort of took it for granted at that point, and obviously then, we were really able to focus on each other, and that was uh, really a blessing. So that's how I initially started. And then I came away thinking, well, this is what everyone does because we should. But I never dreamt that I needed one at that time. So 9 years ago, my husband and I, in our 40s, and my husband was actually diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. And, obviously the diagnosis didn't look good. And we didn't have a binder because we didn't think we needed one. Even though we had, children, um, we thought, well, we're too young. Why would we ever need, a resource like this? And I have to say, we were so wrong because while my husband was going through chemo, they also did prophylactic treatment where he was hospitalized for periods of time. Um, to prevent the cancer from spreading to his brain. And as a result, I could not step in. I didn't know the passwords. I didn't know everything about what we had because, when you're raising a family, it tends to be like divide and conquer. And he took care of the finances and the bill payment. And I was very naive in not knowing all those details. And um, my husband's handwriting is, well, it needs a lot to be desired. So sometimes he's stumped himself when he's trying to figure out what his passwords are. So I could not actually step in and help. So there he was, not, dealing with obviously, the chemo and the side effects, and not in a position to, do this. And then at the same time, I felt terrible because I actually couldn't help. And that was really the turning point for me because I realized you're actually never too young to put together a resource like this. And it is going to evolve as our life changes, but it is a snapshot of our lives and what we have and where it is. And so right after that, I put together our binders, and I became, very passionate about telling people how they could learn from my experience. Um, and when I basically I went to all the senior centers, I started giving presentations, I gave them handouts, telling people this is what you can do, this is how you can do it. Here's an example. It's like 4 pages. This is the content that you should put in it. Um, and, just saying, look, we know we should do it, but now listen to my story. And if you can learn from it, then please take action. And I've been doing it ever since then.
I love it. I love it. I mean, I don't love the reasons that you've had to develop it, but I also am thankful that it it motivated you to create it, and then it also was a gift, like you said, for the time that you had with your dad, and also for learning alongside your husband in the life-changing diagnosis that affects your whole family, really, and gave you something to, I think people need well, I don't think, I know people need something to lean on, and especially in difficult times, having something like that is not only is it a gift, but I think it gives that comfort. Like you said, your mom felt, peace of mind. And also just because so much is digital now, having a place where passwords are written down as legibly as possible, um, is 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 really important, because you can't get rid of pen and paper. There's a lot of reasons why you can't, and that's one of them, because
Right.
in order to access something that's online, you need that password. And if you can't read it, or the person can't give it to you for any number of reasons, then you're really stuck. And it can delay, I know so many people who have had just tremendous difficulties in accessing things after somebody's passed, or if they're unable to communicate, or for whatever reason. So yeah, I think there's just so many um, yeah, benefits. That one of the next questions was, for somebody who's just getting started, what are kind of, so I think of almost like a cheat sheet, like or the sheet that would like go with you in an emergency, because yes, you might bring the whole binder, but if you've created the binder, what's sort of like, you know, I guess this is a two-part question maybe, but what are the first steps, first of all? And I'm guessing that some of the first things to take care of, some of the first ducks to put in a row, are the ducks that you'd take with you for, emergency situations. So I don't know, maybe you can speak to that aspect of it.
Right. So I think that for anyone who's putting something like this together, um, there is a lot of content that goes into it,
Mhm. Right.
but it can also be very overwhelming.
Right.
And so, and I know we talked about that before. So I would say, um, if you're doing it yourself, you've got to obviously think about your priorities. What do you consider to be most important?
Yeah.
And then I would say, actually, like I always in my classes, I always recommend to people that, we go through the whole binder, but I can't fill it out with them. They have to fill it out. So I tell them you have to chip away at it. You cannot sit down and do it all at once.
Yeah.
Um, I always tell them schedule time. So it is a calendar appointment.
Mhm.
Um, in class we joke about it. I say to them, well, I know where you are on a Tuesday morning because you're here with me. We've been meeting for 4 weeks, So now you're going to schedule the next 4 weeks out, and you're just going to pretend that I'm sitting with you at your kitchen table. So you're going to schedule it, you're going to sit at your table, and you're going to actually start to document it. But you're only going to spend an hour on it, and then you're going to close it up because it gets overwhelming. And when people get overwhelmed by it, then they put it aside and they don't turn back to it. And so it really just defeats the whole purpose. So that's why I say chip away at it. Um, like I said, I like to include those 8 sections. So, you know, people, I would recommend, you know, I guess having those 8 sections and then thinking about their life very specifically and how they would customize it. It could be pets, it could be children, it could be if they're caregivers for their parents, however they need to customize it themselves. Um, and then, but again, slowly, 1 hour at a time. Um, so that, first of all, you actually do feel a sense of accomplishment because as you spend a couple of hours doing it, you get motivated. And, like I tell people, you can always stick like if something comes to your mind, have like a little notebook and jot down notes so that when you come back to it, it's just that reminder of what you need to add. Because you know what, it's gonna evolve and you are gonna think of new information that you want to add to it. Absolutely. One thing that people can consider is, so first of all, an emergency page. In an
Right.
emergency, contact
Right.
these people.
Right.
So it's, as an example, your trusted resources. So it could be
Right.
a neighbor because they've got a key. It
Right.
could be, whether it's, I'm just thinking if you've got children, the guardian, or
Hmm.
family, obviously, if you've got a pet, who's going to help take care of the pet.
Hmm.
Somebody I work with, her husband has dementia. And so we have a plan that says, if something happens to mom,
Yeah.
these are the people that dad trusts and
Hmm.
he knows.
Hmm.
Um, and so it's making sure that you look at your, sort of your whole life and understanding these are the people who can help everyone, in your life
Right.
that could need help, whether it's a pet, whether it's children, or if you're the caregiver, whoever it is that you're the caregiver for. So making sure that, yes, that's a priority. You've got that sort of emergency sheet.
Hmm.
And then from there, you start thinking, okay, so we're talking about what if because of a medical emergency. So if it's because of a medical emergency, I think of a healthcare proxy. So if
Hmm.
somebody's a healthcare proxy, so
Right.
one thing, and actually I'll show you because I don't know if I'm assuming you have something similar to this, but your healthcare proxy should have important information.
Hmm.
So first of all, I always tell people it's not enough to have one healthcare proxy. You
Hmm.
need to have alternates.
Hmm.
And a prime example is I'm on Zoom with you and I'm my mum's healthcare proxy. So if I get a call, I'm not going to take it.
Right.
Plus, we're being told more and more, if you don't recognize the number, it could be spam, so don't
Right.
accept it.
Right.
Well, that hospital that could be calling is a number I don't recognize.
Right. Right.
So you've got to have alternates. You need
Right.
those backups.
Right.
Your healthcare proxy needs a copy of that document.
Hmm.
I actually like to have a photo of it on my phone too,
Hmm.
because
Hmm.
even though I may have it on Google Share, technology always likes to trip me up.
Hmm.
And so having a photo allows me to say, look, I've got proof.
Hmm.
I also think that your doctor needs a copy of your healthcare proxy form. Your proxies, all of them, primary and alternates, they need your advanced directives. And I don't know if you have this, it's the file of life. So this is a small wallet size one, and this is a bigger one. Now, the file of life, I think, is so amazing. It was created a long time ago, but it has important information on there about emergency contacts, your health, it talks about who your healthcare proxy is, who has your copy of your advanced directives, the medications that you take, any allergies that you have, and your insurance. So it's really got some very valuable information on it.
Hmm.
And be informed. It's about being
Hmm.
informed. Um,
Right.
and I think nowadays, we used to think of a healthcare proxy as a very short-term role, but it's not anymore. If I know somebody who was diagnosed, she was diagnosed with dementia in her late 50s. And the reality is that she could live with that for 35
Yeah.
years, at least,
Mhm.
who knows?
Right.
So the person as the healthcare proxy, that is a long-term role. So they
Mhm.
really need to know everything about you.
Yep.
So, we started with like how do you start your binder? So first there's the emergency page, who to turn to. And
Mhm.
you could list, for example, who's your proxy
Mhm.
on that list, as well as trusted, friends. or the people who've got a key. Again, if you're the caregiver for someone else, whether it's you've got children or whether it's a spouse with dementia, who do they trust? Who do they know? Who are they comfortable with that can
Yeah.
help you and them during this time?
Mhm.
Um, but I would also, like I said, I would make sure your healthcare proxy has all this important information about you and anything that they would need. Um, those would be critical for me. And then you start to think about, wow, like then there's the whole financial side of things,
Mhm.
because then that becomes very important.
Well, we really covered almost all of the questions, the last one, and I think it's a good segue because you've already started touching on it, is the different formats of
Okay.
and that you have an online course, which I think you've alluded to, that you do some in-person classes, although I imagine that's closer to where you are.
Yeah.
Digital file downloads, and you also mentioned, taking a picture on your phone, and I think that is great, but sometimes you need like the actual file, then the physical hard copy, and then one-on-one coaching. So if you want to talk about some of those, or talk about all of the ways that you can take
Right.
advantage of what you've created here and make.
Okay, yeah. So, obviously there's the physical binder, that's sort of an easy one. And with the physical binder, it really is. You get the binder with the tabs, with extra tabs in the back, and you get all the worksheets. So you just start methodically going through it. And I actually have a list of possible tabs that you might want to consider adding. Just, so that's the physical binder. Um, for people who then decide, well, I want to do this electronically. So I really believe that everyone needs the tactical binder, but if you want to create it, you get the electronic file. You can type your information into it, but I would still recommend printing it. And for anyone who then decides, well, yes, okay, I'm going to get the digital version of this file. It's Microsoft Word. The whole idea is the ease of use. Um, and if anyone decides that's the route that they want to go, then they just have to email me and I'll send them the tabs anyway. Because if you're going to print it out, I do believe you need to, divide it into the specific sections. Um, it just makes it so much easier down the road when you're looking, oh, I need my medical information, or I need to know how I pay this bill, etc. Um, so the the class that I teach, it is in my area, the Boston area. But what happened was a lot of people said to me, well, I have a family member or a friend out of state. What can they do? And I used to say, well, I'm sorry. I don't travel out of state. So I was encouraged to create the online course. So it's 4 videos. They get all the bonus information that I teach in class, but they also get the electronic version of the binder. And again, if somebody asks, I will send them all the tabs as well. So the class gives them like the videos as well as the electronic version of the binder. Um, um, so those are really the different formats. But I have to say, I love the classes. I'm pretty passionate about them because the way I see it, we are a team in this. We are
Mhm.
all learning from each other. I meet with them 4 times for an hour and a half each time. And the first 3 classes, we talk about all the sections in the binder. And we talk about the file of life, and everyone gets them. And we talk about how that information can be put on your smartphone. And, so we go through all of that, just lots of information. And then the last class, actually, we talk about other important information that I think seniors should know about. Uh, I I listen to a lot of podcasts. I take classes, and I want to share it with them. There's no reason for me to keep it. As I say to them, we are in this together. I learn from you, you learn from me. And if we can't help each other, then what is this about?
Mhm. I like that.
So, yeah. And then the
Wonderful.
one-on-one is I just get people who say, well, I started and I can't finish. Can you help me finish?
Mhm.
And then depending upon where they live, it's either in person or it's over Zoom.
Mhm.
Or for some people, they will actually say to me, I need this. I'm sure you've heard like solo ages, a lot of them like I'm a widow and I have no children or my children are far away. Um, I need this, but I know I won't create it.
Mhm.
And they know that they're accountable to me.
Right.
So together as a team, we work to put it together.
Well, it's so great to hear the whole story behind it. It's great to hear your passion. It's very clear. And it's a very practical tool. And I'm just thankful that you shared this with us.
Yeah, so I have a website. I mean, so you can through my website, it talks about the binder, all the different, options, my email as well. But so if you, for anyone who's interested, it's lifelink consulting llc.com. My email is just lifelinkconsultingllc@gmail.com. You know, I tell people, even if they take the class and 2 years later, they've got questions, just email me. If I can help them,
Yeah.
then, that's the way to do it. So I just, they can email me with any questions, thoughts, you know, happy to
Yeah.
try and direct people if I can or help them.